In 2024, Mizuno did their first mystery shoe campaign with the launch of the Neo Vista 1. It was a shoe that didn't fit Mizuno's usual aesthetic or profile, and it boasted some impressive technology. The overall response was phenomenal. Fast forward to 2025, and Mizuno released announced four mystery shoes, the second of which is the Neo Vista 2. So which one's right for you, the original Neo Vista 1 or the new revamped Neo Vista 2? What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're going to be reviewing or comparing the Vista 1 with the Vista 2, and if it's your first time watching my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the comparison, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Before I get into any details or disclaimers or anything like that, I do want to do a quick plug, which is that I am currently raising money to run the Tokyo Marathon. I'm going the charity route, and last week I did submit my charity application. It's basically blind auction style, so I'm pretty confident that I'm going to get in, but I did bid $4,000, so now I am attempting to raise that $4,000 in order to get there. Something about me that's a little bit unique is I am actually half Japanese, and I did grow up in Tokyo, Japan. I was born there before moving stateside as, a young kid, and then I returned back, and from the ages of 10 all the way through graduating high school, I lived in Japan. However, the last time I was there was 2011, basically after my freshman year of college. Now I'm looking to return 14, soon to be 15 years later, to run the marathon and be able to show my kids where I grew up and introduce them to part of their culture, as they are actually half Japanese, as is my wife, but none of them have ever been to Japan. Now I'll have a GoFundMe link or some type of fundraising link up and running once I get the official confirmation that I'm in, but in the meantime, I am committing to donating any donations that I make within June, July, and August here on the channel, as well as donating any ad revenue or income from YouTube, as well as from commissions with the affiliate links below. I have affiliate links for Fuel Goods, which is my go-to fuel source for gels, post-workout drinks, things along those lines, as well as Wallaco, where they have my favorite half tights. They're the distance half tights. They're what I use for pretty much every speed session as well as long run, and it is probably what I will be racing in as well. So if you'd like to donate to the channel, please consider using the super thanks button below. You can donate through the comments, or if you want to wait until I have an official fundraising link, totally fine as well. Just know I'm committing the ad revenue again for June, July, and August regardless, and so if you watch the video, you're contributing to that, and because of that, I'm very grateful to have you here. Now moving on to disclaimers and disclosures, I did receive both of these shoes for free for the purpose of review from Mizuno. That being said, whenever I receive a shoe, I'm not paid, I'm not given talk tracks, talking points, no one gets to watch the video beforehand, I'm not obligated to include the shoe in any specific content, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these shoes. Now, last year it was a little bit confusing, and I think that it came down to maybe a mistranslation or miscommunication, but a lot of people were calling the Neo Vista 1 a daily trainer that happened to have a plate in it. And we know at this point, like, daily trainers don't have plates. In fact, especially at this stack height with a fiberglass plate, which is very similar to a nylon plate, we're looking at a super trainer, right? So, which is going to be a speed-oriented long run shoe, essentially, one that basically works with your super shoe as kind of a training companion, and that's how we're going to be looking at these two shoes today. Now, from a price standpoint, the Vista 1 came in at $180. This year's model, the Vista 2, does come in at $200, and personally, I am okay with that price increase. For one, because most super trainers or max cushion super trainers are now at that $200 mark. I'm not necessarily okay with the overall inflation on shoe prices, but I am okay in the sense that it fits within that category, at least that price point. That's where they're all at. On top of that, I do feel like there's some pretty significant upgrades that we'll go through today that justify the $20 increase for Mizuno. Now, from a specs perspective, the 1 came in at 9.1 ounces, which was 258 grams, and the 2's coming in at 9.3 ounces, which is 264 grams. So it is a little bit heavier, but not a significant amount in my mind. It's not like a super noticeable weight to me. Next, from a stack standpoint, the 1 came in at 53 in the heel, 45 in the forefoot for a 8mm drop, and the 2 comes in at 51 in the heel, 43 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. So you are getting a little bit shorter, but it depends on where you get your measurements. Both of my measurements did come from Running Warehouse, and they do measure independently. Maybe the sidewall comes up a little bit more on the foam on the Vista 2 though, but it does look thicker if I'm being honest, side by side. So again, both measurements came from Running Warehouse, so that's what they saw when they basically measured the shoes themselves. Now moving to the fit, both of the fits are very, very long. You know, in fact, I do think half sizing down in both of these would make a lot of sense. I also had to half size down in the Neo Zen. Similar overall fit between those two shoes to me. On top of that, they both have a fairly narrow midfoot, but then a very spacious overall fit throughout the shoe. So, you know, I would say that the Zen or the Vista 2 has a wider heel compared to the Vista 1, but I also feel like, and we'll talk about this in the upper, the Vista 1 maybe was a little more elastic. So toe box wise, they're about the same. Midfoot wise, they're about the same. Heel wise though, Vista 2 has a noticeably wider heel to me. Now moving to the uppers, both of them have knit sock uppers, and they're very, very similar overall. So looking with the Neo Vista 1, you can see that, you know, you have the elastic material, it stretches there in the tongue, it stretches there in the heel, and you don't really have a lot of cushion on the inside. It's more of, again, it's like a sock fit. So you're not really looking for cushion because it's going to fit basically right up against your foot. The same thing is true with the Neo Vista 2. The Neo Vista 2, no real cushion, sock fit, elastic or stretchy kind of tongue area as well as heel to allow you to get the shoe on. Now, what I found with the 1, and the major difference here to me, is that I found like the 1 stretched a little bit more throughout the upper. It wasn't like super, super significant, and the material is thin enough that it was breathable, but there was just more stretch around that tongue area to where I really struggled to get lockdown in the Vista 1. The upper was comfortable, but also I just felt like the upper hung over the side of the shoe and that medial side, so it felt like it was really, really narrow, and I felt like a real lack of support overall in that upper. All in all, it just felt overly baggy for me, and it was a little bit frustrating. You know, the upper in the Vista 1 didn't really work for me. Now, the Vista 2 suffers from a lot of the same problems that the Vista 1 had, but the bigger problem is really the heel is pretty spacious overall. So I did find that I had to cinch down pretty tight in the midfoot area, but despite that, I actually had pretty good lockdown for the most part. I think a large part of that is, one, I'll talk about this in the midfoot section, but it is or in the midsole section, it is a more stable shoe overall. And so that helped not feeling like I was hanging over like crazy, even though it still does hang over on the medial side on that, with the upper hanging over kind of the midsole. But I think the big thing is the upper is not as stretchy in the 2 to me when compared to the 1. So I didn't feel like I was like exploding out of the shoe on the Vista 2. And so I felt like a little bit better overall lockdown despite having some heel slippage still. I kind of wish you could combine the uppers, use the material of the 2, but then maybe like go with a little bit more snug heel like you did in the 1. You can see that it's subtle, but the tongue kind of comes up a little bit higher, I think, on the 1 compared to the 2, and so you do get better heel overall lockdown, but I do feel like the midfoot is a little bit better in the Vista 2. Either way, I would like to try both of these in a 10 versus a 10.5, because I just feel like with the Neo Zen, I really liked it in the 10.5, but I absolutely loved it in the 10. Now moving to the midsoles, you do have some pretty significant changes in the compounds in each shoe. In the Neo Vista 1, you had the Enerzy NXT, which was a nitrogen-infused EVA. It looks like it's dual density because there's 2 pieces, right? There's 2 colors, but it actually, from my understanding, is the same foam in both layers, and then you do have a fiberglass plate that runs through the shoe. Now, this foam is soft, it is comfortable, but I found that the EVA version, at least this version of Mizuno Enerzy Next, it just wasn't super bouncy or responsive. It's comfortable, it's smooth, but I felt like the underfoot feel was a little bit snappy, or slappy, I should say, and a large part of that probably comes down to the actual fit of the shoe paired with, or the length of the shoe paired with like a not really, really responsive foam. On top of that, you can see that there is this little dent here in the medial side of the midsole, and when I would run, because it is a narrow upper, right, and then you're hanging over that midsole area, that when that collapsed, it created a lot of instability for me. So as someone who, you know, has some slight pronation, it's not full over pronation, but it is more than like the average gait, specifically on my right side, it was super noticeable and it got super, super annoying as I ran. So that paired with kind of difficult lockdown, the shoe kind of collapsing, I didn't feel like it was the most fun foam. Like, I could see the vision, but I felt like the execution of the shoe just wasn't quite there. it created an unstable, a little bit dull ride for me. And I will say, I think I am in the minority with that opinion. I think most people absolutely love the One. For me, it just didn't quite work with that midsole. Moving to the Vista 2 though, completely different overall experience. So this is a dual density foam, or two different foam types, right? And then you do still have that fiberglass plate that runs through. On top of that, they filled in the gap. So there is still maybe a little bit of a split because of the two different midsole types, but they filled in the gap. So it's not inherently unstable the same way as the Vista 1. Now, I will say the shoe is still unstable, right? But it's more stable than last year's version. It's tolerable this time for me. But on top of that, you have the nitrogen-infused TPU on the top layer, the same foam that's used in the Neo Zen. And then you have the nitrogen-infused EVA there on the bottom layer, right? So you have a more stable, more absorbent, less responsive foam on the bottom to give it a little bit more structure, to give it a little bit more control. And then you have that super bouncy Energy Next on top, the TPU. And so you really do just bounce off the ground, but it's not as bouncy maybe as the Neo Zen, but it's a little bit smoother, it's a little bit more controlled, but it is a little snappier, it is a little faster. And so what I found between the two shoes, like the Neo Vista 1, I didn't feel like I could really nail my moderate paces with it. It was really unstable. Again, it didn't give me a lot of return. And so really, like, maybe that's the confusion. Maybe that's why people liked it as a daily trainer, because that's all it felt good for me personally. Long runs were fine, but I didn't love the shoe. The Vista 2, though, it corrects all of that, and frankly, like, the Vista 2 punches above what I would think was intended use in terms of the speed. So, while I'm not going to take it to the track and rip some 200s, 400s, I do think that it's capable of hitting those paces more in a straight line, right? The shoe is very smooth. It does snap off the ground. There's more pop. There's more bounce. There's a lot of energy return. It feels very comfortable on, long runs with tempo paces, progression runs, cut downs, ladders, things along those lines. So really, really a lot more versatile. Still unstable. So if you are someone who needs stability, these are not that, but more stable than last year and a lot more responsive, a lot faster to me. Now, moving to the outsoles on the Neo Zen, or the Neo Vista 1, sorry, you had the G3 rubber compound, and I thought it did a really good job. It doesn't look like it's going to grip the ground like crazy, but I did run in some wet areas, and it did a really, really good job. Mizuno's outsole compounds tend to be pretty grippy, in my opinion. I do think with the X10 rubber, though, on the Vista 2, it is an upgrade. Plus, you have a little bit more traction, or a little bit more groove in there to grip the ground. They actively squeaked on the ground as I ran in them. So I really do think you're getting some really, really strong overall traction. And neither of them are wearing down like crazy, which is nice as well. So it does feel like they're going to be fairly durable. So overall, I feel like the outsoles do actually a really good job. Not just adequate, but I would say, like, I do think the Vista 2 is better, but the Vista 1 had really, really good grip overall. Now, as far as my pick between the two shoes, personally, I think it's obvious at this point. The Vista 1 did not work for me. Again, I saw the vision. I understand. In fact, the first time I tried on the shoe was even before TRE. I got to see it at my local running store because I was helping them make buying decisions. And I saw the Vista 1. I tried it on. It felt really awesome in store. And then when I got it in hand later, the next year, it just didn't really deliver on the same way that I was hoping for it when I was going for those extended workouts. The Vista 2 has been one of my favorite shoes to run in so far this year. Right now it's sitting in my runner-up as far as Super Trainer for 2025, mainly because it just, I chose the Brooks Hyperion Max 3 as my Super Trainer so far in the first half of 2025. Reasoning for that is because surprisingly, the Max 3, I think, can do some faster, shorter intervals. And I do think the Neo Vista 2 is capable, but it just doesn't feel like that's really what it's for, especially with the lockdown on it. I think it would have to have a little bit more dialed fit for me to feel super comfortable for that. But it's wonderful in progression settings. It's wonderful for its intended use. So I really like the Vista 2. I don't know why someone would take the Vista 1 over the Vista 2, if I'm being honest. Like, I'll be curious to hear as more and more people get their hands on the Neo Vista 2 if people are upset about any of the changes, because I don't think there's any change that was made to the Vista 2 like it's a little bit heavier, right? The foam is more responsive. It's a lot more fun of a shoe to run in. The upper is a lot better fitting. So I don't but everyone's feet are different. Everyone has preferences. So there's probably someone who's going to like the Vista 1 more. I just don't see why that would be the case. So just some final thoughts between these two shoes, or just in general with the whole Neo line coming from Mizuno, as well as updates to the Rebellion Pro series. I'm really impressed with what they're doing. I'm really impressed with the innovation. I'm really impressed to see them kind of get out of their comfort zone and try new things. Mizuno is a brand that puts years into a shoe, right? They don't want to just release a new version of shoe every single year because that's what people do. They're okay making major changes. The Wave Rider 29 is a major change from last year's 28, right? We'll do a review on that one here in the next couple of weeks, but they really have put their heart and soul into innovation over the last few years, and it's really cool to see it paying off. And I've seen some previews and different things of what's to come from the brand. They're going to continue to just push the needle and innovate, and I'm really excited for it. So, if you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Let me know in the comments what you enjoyed, what questions, comments, thoughts you have about the video, what I could be doing better, or what other comparisons you'd like to see as well. And again, quick plug, if you'd like to help me get to Tokyo and run the Tokyo Marathon, or really just help me raise the money for charity, right, please consider hitting the thanks button below and leaving a donation in the comments, or just wait until I have that fundraising link up and running and you can go and donate through that channel as well. Lastly, I'll leave you guys with a question, as always, which is, do you feel like the Vista 2 is a big upgrade to the Vista 1, or are you frustrated? If so, why? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.